Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, AOC debuts a new accent, and it reminds me of something from Blazing Saddles. I kid you not. We'll have that crazy audio for you, but before we get to any of that, time for a story you're not going to get anywhere else.
Talk Radio 570 KVI, an Ari Hoffman Show exclusive.
I was offline yesterday for the Jewish holiday of Passover, and I came back, and there was an email in my inbox from the Department of Education. Not Washington's Department of Education, the federal Department of Education. Now, before I tell you what it said, we have been saying on this show for months now, we need the feds to come ride to the rescue here in Washington because things have gotten so bad that even me, the conservative, is begging for federal intervention. Well, now it looks like that might be happening, and they might be going after Chris Reykdal, the superintendent of public instruction. Let me tell you what this email said on Monday. The U.S. Department of Education's Office of the General Counsel initiated an investigation into the Washington Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction, OSPI, due to concerns that they are requiring the La Center School District to implement policies that potentially conflict with and violate federal laws. The Department of Education said the policies implemented by OSPI violate the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, that's FERPA, the Protection of Pupil Rights Amendment, PPRA, and Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972. The letter follows a years-long fight between the school district and the state. Which fight is this? The story might be familiar to you. Earlier this year, OSPI ordered La Center School District to change its policies to conform with state law to protect gender-expansive students, which is contrary to federal law, and threatened to withhold funds from the school district after it refused to hide students' gender identities from parents. Washington's Democratic Superintendent of Public Instruction, Chris Reykdal, claimed the La Center School District's decision to inform parents of how a student identifies in school discriminates against students and families regarding gender inclusivity and rights of queer and transgender students. La Center School Superintendent Peter Rosenkrantz said in an interview earlier this year that he believes the state's policies leave parents out of the equation by requiring school staff to ask students their preferred pronouns rather than their parents. Now, Superintendent Rosenkrantz is going to be joining us around 4:30 today to discuss all of this. You get to hear it from the horse's mouth about how he's protecting parents, how Chris Reykdal and Democrats are targeting him for it, for protecting your parental rights. Because if there's one thing that's become very clear over the weekend, the Democrats here in Washington state do not want you to have any parental rights. In a statement to our show, the Department of Education said it is committed to protecting parents' rights, noting that it recently launched FERPA investigations into Maine and California and sent a Dear Colleague letter directing schools to comply with parental rights laws, which means, what's the next state that's messing around with parental rights? Washington. Now, I had kind of hoped that Bob Ferguson was going to do the smart thing here and not alienate every parent and maybe not sign off on this gutting of Initiative 2081, the Parental Bill of Rights. But I think now he wants the fight. I think he wants the fight with the Trump administration. We'll come back to that. Last week, Reykdal pushed back against the Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights request for states to certify their compliance with Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, as well as the landmark Supreme Court ruling striking down affirmative action. He called the request the latest attack against the rights of states to have civil rights frameworks that exceed the federal minimum standards and claimed the move was an attempt to erase diversity, equity, and inclusion practices that for decades have helped bring greater opportunities to more students. Question: is there a single opportunity that has been brought to more students here in Washington because of DEI? A single one. Is there a single school district where the grades have gone up? Hang on. I'll do one better. Is there a single school where the grades have gone up since DEI was implemented. If there was, Washington would be touting it from the rooftops. They'd be yelling on top of Mount Rainier. No, you know what they'd be doing? On the top of the Space Needle, they'd have some kind of flag-raising ceremony. They like their flag-raising ceremonies. Look how great our grades are. Aren't they stupendous? They're not. They're in the toilet. We know this. So, let's not forget that Rachel previously said it is quite simply inaccurate to say biologically that there are only boys and girls in response to President Donald Trump's executive order that there are only two genders. He said during the same interview, DEI is not a harmful thing, it's a good thing, despite every single metric showing that it's not only a colossal failure for grades, but kids have bigger mental health problems as a result of it. Rachel has championed the divisive ideology while presiding over a disastrous decline in Washington academics, where 71% of the state's 8th graders aren't proficient in math, 69% aren't proficient in reading, despite record spending. He previously said Washington will not suppress its core values or cede our right to determine our own education system to the federal government. Whose values, Chris? Really, whose values? You think you can parent these kids better than their own parents? Earlier this month, Rachel was one of several Democratic officials in Washington who threatened legal action against the governing body for high school sports of the Evergreen State if the agency banned men from women's sports. The day after, President Donald Trump signed an executive order to keep men out of women's sports. Rachel issued a statement claiming that it directly contradicts state law, requires educational institutions to agree to discriminate against trans female athletes in order to continue receiving federal funds. Yeah, he's lost his mind. This is actually who he is. And since he's won election 3 times in a row now with a bigger majority, he thinks he can get away with whatever he wants. You want proof of that? The feds now say they're launching an investigation. In my opinion, this is an open and shut case, which right away you're going to see that Chris Rakedal is violating federal law by forcing the Law Center School District to do this. But what does OSPI say in a statement? They told us we are aware of the U.S. Department of Education is attempting to intervene in an ongoing civil rights review between OSPI and Law Center School District, a potential overreach of the federal government's authority. Why is it an overreach of the federal government's authority to enforce federal law? It's not. You guys overreached by saying parents don't have rights anymore, and in your overreaching, in my opinion, you violated federal rights. They said we will continue to steadfastly follow the laws of the state of Washington, which provide clear civil rights protections for our transgender and gender-expansive youth that fit squarely inside the protections provided under federal law. No, what you want is to hide what's going on with kids from their parents. How do I know this? Over the weekend, Democrats in the Washington State House were voting on gutting the parental Bill of Rights, and they pulled out the nuclear option. Do you remember at the beginning of the legislative session, the Democrats changed a 132-year-old rule, which was basically they did this so they could end debate anytime they wanted to. So that way, if they don't like something the Republicans are saying, they don't want to give Travis Couture a soundbite moment, so they just shut down debate. They don't want to give Chris Corey, Jim Walsh, anybody else a soundbite moment, so they just shut down debate. They don't even want to have the debate. So, over the weekend, they didn't want to have the debate on parental rights. Now, our friend Anthony Mixer sent this over to me. He's one of the young Republicans down at the legislature. He pulled this clip of Representative Dufault, who's pretty much saying exactly what we're talking about right now. And watch as Lori Jenkins, Speaker of the Washington House, Democrat, shuts down him from even voicing his opinion on the matter. That's what they're there to do.
Member from the 15th District, Representative Defoe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This bill sidelines hundreds of thousands of parents from across Washington state. This bill silences hundreds of thousands of parents across Washington state. This chamber has existed for over 130 years, but for the first time in its history a few moments ago, debate was silenced. Debate was censored.
Please speak to the policy. Please proceed.
This bill led to the censorship of representatives of the people of Washington state who strongly supported the initiative and who opposed this bill. On a debate about an emergency clause, taking that out, an amendment that would have taken out the emergency clause and would have allowed, finally, the people of Washington state to vote on a referendum undoing this bill, was not accepted and can now not be considered by the people of Washington state. Madam Speaker, the legislature passed this bill rather than let it go to the people. The people continue to be obstructed by this chamber by not voting on.
Please do not impugn members.
This is he said Washington State there. That was the last thing he said there. He's saying you're silencing the voices of those in Washington State. And here's the thing, my friends, he's 100% right. He's not impugning anybody. That's exactly what the Democrats did. They don't want to face the other members of the Washington legislature about the fact that they are censoring debate and that they are taking away parental rights. So what do? They just shut down the debate. We will not have any objections. Silence! We don't want to hear from you. This is insane. This is where we're at right now. No debate. No freedom of speech. Why the hell do we even have a legislature then? Let's just let Bob Ferguson enact whatever craziness he wants to. His little stormtroopers like creepy Chris Rakedahl will just carry them out. We don't even have a legislature. The Democrats in Olympia know that if you were paying attention to what's going on in Olympia, you would be melting their phone lines at 1-800-562-6000 to scream at them about gutting the parental Bill of Rights. But do you know how many people I spoke to over the weekend? In my synagogue, friends I haven't seen in a while in other synagogues. Do you know how many people I spoke to had no idea any of this was happening? Had no clue whatsoever. That's what the Democrats are counting on. Because what else are they discussing right now? Budget stuff. Raising your taxes through the roof. Through the roof. And they don't want any dissent, and they don't want anybody knowing about it. You know what they want this to be like? The long-term care tax. Where most people didn't know they could opt out. Most people had no idea the thing was even coming. And then all of a sudden they start seeing money being taken out of their paycheck electronically, and they go, whoa, why do I have less money this month? And they said, Ari, can you look into this? I said, well, clearly you don't listen to my show because we've been ranting and raving about this for months now. But people weren't paying attention. And because they weren't paying attention, we're now stuck with the long-term care tax. And because people didn't understand what was on the initiatives last time, because Bob Ferguson made it so crazy to even try to attempt to read what these initiatives were all about because he got to write it, the Democrats got their way on these things. So the Democrats passed the Parental Bill of Rights knowing that it wouldn't be on the ballot because then more people would show up to vote for it and vote against their other insanity. So they passed this thing knowing that down the road they can mess with it. And that's what they're doing right now. And on top of it, you know what they're doing also? They are making sure that nobody knows this is what they're doing at all. They want to gut every single parental right you have, so you have no idea what's going on with your kids. If you want to call them up, be nice to the people on the phone, but you want to voice your displeasure with what the Democrats are doing, 1-800-562-6000. That's 1-800-562-6000. And say you oppose any attempt by the Democrats to gut the Parental Bill of Rights, because that's exactly what's going on. That's exactly what's happening. Now, reminder, at 4:30, around 4:30, Superintendent Rosenkranz from the Law Center School District will be joining us. And at 4:45, Representative Chris Corey will be joining us, telling us exactly what's going on in the legislature and what they're trying to hide from you. because what we need is transparency. Why were they so desperate to keep out Brandy Cruz and Jonathan Cho out of the legislature? The Democrats were desperate to keep them out because they know they have big audiences, and they know if the average Washingtonian knew what was going on in Olympia, they wouldn't stand from it. And they'd be hearing from them at 1-800-562-6000. That's 1-800-562-6000. You call them up and you say, don't raise our property taxes. You say, we want our parental rights. We don't want parental rights gutted. This is absolutely insane. And here's something else, by the way. We should be asking this. If Chris Rakedall's office, OSPI, is trying to threaten that he's going to take away funding from the Law Center School District, which is taking parents' sides, then are they about to lose their federal funding? Because you know what's going to happen if they lose their federal funding. We'll all cheer. We'll all get excited about that and then realize Chris Rakedall is just going to go to the legislature and he's going to say, you need to give us money. You need to tax Washingtonians because of what Donald Trump did. That's what's going to happen. Play it to the end of the tape, my friends. As excited as we are that the feds are riding to the rescue right now, this could create more problems in the long run. But at the end of the day, I think Chris Rakedall wants to fight. I think Nick Brown wants the fight. I think Bob Ferguson wants the fight because they all get to say, we took on Trump and here's what happened. We took on Trump. We challenged Trump. Bob Ferguson is in the governor's office because of the amount of times he sued Donald Trump. Nick Brown thinks he's next in line when Bob Ferguson goes somewhere else. And now Chris Rakedall's getting delusions of grandeur as well. Now, the thing is, I don't think Chris Rakedall is electable on a national level after all this insanity he's pushed for. But you watch Bob Ferguson try to moderate himself, who says a guy like Chris Rakedall wouldn't do the exact same thing. They don't want you to know what's going on. They don't want you to have parental rights. They want to jack your property taxes through the roof, and they want to shut down any dissent, any debate on this at all. So my question to you is as follows. Do you want OSPI to lose that government, that federal funding, knowing that the Washington legislature is going to flip around and try and tax you to replace it? Or do you want to fight that also? Do you think it's a good thing that the feds are getting involved? Or are you worried about the feds getting involved? Personally, I want them getting involved at every level of government around here, given how badly this state, this county, this city is being run right now. Let me know what you think. Do you think the feds being involved is a good thing or a bad thing? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. And speaking of the budget crisis in the Washington legislature, Seattle has their own massive budget crisis. And they're doing the exact same tricks to try and guilt you into supporting tax increases. We'll have those details for you when we come back. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Yeah, watch out America, but also watch out Seattle, because what's happening in the Washington state legislature, it looks like Seattle's trying to copy the exact same thing. We were telling you before how now, because of this massive budget shortfall caused by out-of-control spending by the Democrats and more spending they want to add on top of it, now they're looking at a massive tax hike increase. So we know that today is April 15th. We know it's tax day. But don't forget that at 5 o'clock today on the steps of the Capitol in Olympia, there's going to be a protest against the property tax hike. If you don't think you can make it, my friends, if you got a little bit of spare time and you're in the neighborhood, show up. Tens of thousands of people have already testified against these property tax increases. And here's the thing. You got to show Bob Ferguson how unpopular this is, how it'll ruin his entire political career and any aspirations he has for higher office if he signs any bills that include property tax increases. And who's going to be hit the hardest? People in King County, people in Pierce County, people in any of these counties. You are going to be hit the hardest because Seattle's trying to do the exact same thing. How do I know this? Well, my friends, over the weekend, I can't get the news. So around the area, some people have the Seattle Times just sitting there, and I grabbed it and looked through it and saw this article here that Seattle is predicted to bring in $240 million less in revenue over the next 2 years than previously thought, according to the city's economic analysis, who also note that employment could shrink and send the city's economy into a recession lasting until 2027. Whose fault is this, by the way? The Seattle City Council, because they're the ones who voted for the Jumpstart tax. They're the ones who voted for the head tax, which chased away Amazon and plenty of other employers. By the way, I love the Seattle Times continuing to write these sob stories about all these restaurants that are closing and leaving, but not addressing the fact that it's the minimum wage, that it's the Jumpstart tax, that's all these different things that are driving them out of here on top of the crime. It used to be the things we complained about around here were the homeless and the vagrants and the drug addicts and the crime and the lack of police officers. Now, their own bad fiscal policies have also created the downward trend of our city. And by the way, Seattle Times finally wrote about this forecast. They wrote about it while I was off air. Mike, we've been covering this for what, 3 months now? And now the Seattle Times finally says, by the way, I think their numbers are off. I think it's closer to 300 million, not 240 million, just like, and we can go back and check the tape, when I was talking about the budget gap, because remember, originally the budget gap in Olympia, what were they talking about? It might be 6, it might be 8, it might be 10. I said, if it's that much that they're admitting to, it's clearly much higher than that. And then what do they come out with? Might be 12, might be 14, might be 15. We're not even sure, but we're going to tax you for it. We know that. That's their plan. That's really their plan. Just tax everybody. And then, just like they were doing at King County, with the sob stories of, oh, if you don't let us raise your property taxes, we're going to have to take away your police and other services. They're doing the exact same thing. Ready for this one? According to the Seattle Times, hundreds of formerly homeless people in King County may lose the means to pay rent beyond next year, the result of a pandemic-era program ending early. King County received more than 1,300 emergency housing vouchers in 2021, rental subsidies paid for by the American Rescue Plan, aimed at addressing homelessness. Housing authorities anticipate the funding would last until 2030, but the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development sent a letter in March saying the program was out of money. Yeah, because a lot of people said, oh, wait, we get free money? I'm homeless. I'll take your vouchers now. Give me your vouchers. On top of that, you have a whole bunch of drug addicts who are just living off the government with no incentive to get clean and no incentive to get jobs. I can understand if you said, hey, we have this program, and here's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be saying, okay, we'll get you into temporary housing, but it's going to last for 6 months. You got 6 months to get yourself clean and get yourself a job and get yourself back into society so you can pay your own rent. Instead, they wanted this thing lasting through 2030? Are you crazy? 10 years after the pandemic. A decade of this insanity. But what are they trying to do? Donald Trump is bad because he's cutting the funding on this bad program. Oh, wait, no, we mean it's a good program. He's cutting the funding on this program. And because of that, there will be more homeless people on the streets. Here's something else. When we originally announced that there was a homeless emergency in our area, there were 3,000 people on the streets. 3,000. We now have somewhere between 15 and 30,000 homeless people on the streets. Maybe if we stop incentivizing homelessness, maybe then we won't have as many homeless people. Just a thought. Let me know what you think. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Anna in Puyallup. Anna, what's going on?
Hey, you were asking your listeners how they feel about the whole federal government coming in to deal with the schools here in Washington State. I honestly, it's a good thing, but it's a 50-50 situation, right? Because, like you said, Chris Rexdale is possibly going to be going to the legislature to ask for more taxes. Well, it just so happens that Washington State is planning on raising our taxes where there's no cap. And I want the federal government to come in and to actually take care of the situation that honestly has been horrible. You know, like we see the numbers, we hear it on the news. It's a good thing and a bad thing, right?
Right. So let me help you out here a little bit, Anna. I'm going to help you make your point, okay? So on election night, at the KVI election night party, the room was exploding when Trump won. Absolutely exploding.
Oh,
and
I believe it.
Right. Well, I mean, I think the room capacity was like 500 and like 1,000 people showed up. It was nuts. But then we started seeing the Washington results of how bad things were here and how much Democrats had gained here in Washington, and a lot of people just didn't get it. They don't get that there's trade-offs, and that Washington State, we were finding out very, very quickly, was the one state in the U.S. that moved to the left, and we did the analysis on why, because all those Californians came up here. So, yeah, I'm with you. We need the Trump administration to fix all this stuff, but at the same time, you know what's going to happen. We're going to get hit with all these tax increases, right?
Yep, and I mean, we're living on one income rate at the moment. So, I mean, just imagine people who are not making as much money as my husband, who works for a union, but still, it's like, imagine everybody who can be affected by this, and we need to get involved.
Right. Think about seniors who are going to be priced out of their homes. Think about regular working class people who are going to be priced out of their homes, which is a reminder. Today at 5 o'clock on the steps of the Capitol in Olympia, they are having a protest against this massive property tax increase that Anna is talking about that is going to kick people out of their homes. If you are in the area, if you're able to attend, it's at 5 o'clock on the steps of the Capitol in Olympia. Anna, thank you so much for the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Brian in Tacoma. Brian, what's up?
Hey, Ari. I just wanted to mention that I agree with you with regard to enabling the homeless. There's a place in Tacoma next to a park called Lots for Tots. It's called Associated Ministries. They provide all kinds of things for the homeless. And that park used to have kids in it, hence the name Lots for Tots. I haven't seen a kid there for 5 years. And the
is that one of
because
those COVID casualties, like it became a huge drug den during COVID?
Yes, yes. And the homeless encampments, there were about 4 huge homeless encampments around there during that time. In fact, one of them, the one on J Street between Brazil and 11th Street, was removed about a week and a half ago. It has been removed 6 times now. And I would bet that within a couple of weeks, we're going to see it back.
It'll just be coming back.
But,
do me a favor here, Brian. I want you to email me pictures. I mean, don't get close if you don't have to. I don't want you putting yourself in a dangerous situation. Or even addresses. And I'll talk to Jonathan Cho about checking out these places, okay?
Yeah, absolutely. I have a ton of pictures, so that's not a problem. How do I get to you?
Real easy. Email them at ari@kvi.com. That's ari@kvi.com. Pretty easy email address, right?
All right. Got it.
Good deal. Thanks, Brian. Really do appreciate it. Appreciate the tip. You want to be part of the show, you want to give us any tips, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, AOC debuts a new accent, and I couldn't help but notice the similarities to one of the characters in Blazing Saddles. We'll have that awesome audio for you when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. So AOC and Bernie Sanders are out doing these big rallies. I do love that Bernie Sanders goes out to Coachella to bash the wealthy. Coachella, for those of you who don't know, is a big music festival where tickets cost about $600 a pop. The wealthy are at the concert. But Mike, I've never paid even close to that for a ticket to a concert. And even for like big name items, when Van Halen reunited and came here, I didn't pay anything close to that for Van Halen. And I can guarantee you, I don't know anybody who's on the Coachella roster this year. Odds are if you even read the thing to me, I wouldn't know who any of them are. But it's insane that you're going there and lecturing the wealthy, and then they're cheering you. That's even crazier. Yeah, down with the... Wait, that's us. Oh, okay. Well, anyway, AOC this weekend held a rally in Idaho with Bernie Sanders. Okay. She went to Idaho. All right, let's see how good your message gets there in Idaho. But sure, let's see this. They're trying to go to red safe areas, thinking that those are going to shift blue because AOC came to town. No, you're just going to get the people. Confirmation bias. That's what you're going to get. Confirmation bias, because in every red stable, there is always some blue people. But while she was talking, she changed her voice to a new accent. And when I saw the headline of this thing trending on social media, I assumed we were going to hear the Latina accent or something of that nature. No. Instead, I heard something that sounded really, really familiar to me.
Donald Trump is a criminal who was found guilty of 34 felony counts of fraud, liable for sexual abuse. Of course he's lying and abusing and manipulating the stock market too.
That sounded really familiar to me. Has her vocal coach been Mel Brooks? Because she sounds a lot like Madeline Kahn in Blazing Saddles.
I've been with thousands of men, again and again. They sing the same tune.
Doesn't it sound exactly the same? She sounds like Madeline Kahn in Blazing Saddles. It's true. That's what she sounds like. Bonkers crazy. That's what she sounds like. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Leonard in Shoreline. Leonard, what's up, man?
Hey, nothing much. I'm just getting ready to get on the Link Light Rail train to go home. As a matter of fact, I gotta get on the southbound track to go north because Sound Transit doing their stupid disruptions, which I saw yesterday. People ripping out their cell phones to dial up an Uber to get the heck out of downtown Seattle.
Yeah, good to do that on a work day. Good job, guys. Yes, what can I help you with today, Leonard?
Yeah, what I was going to tell you is, I'm glad you played that because, here in Washington State with these Democrats, I think what they're trying to do is I think they're trying to ruin their own state. And secondly, I cannot wait until 2028 until we get a Republican Party that can actually change things and stop these Democrats from doing this BS that they're doing right now.
Why aren't we focusing on 2025, Leonard? We got mayoral elections around here. We have other local elections. Why are you waiting till 2028?
Yeah, because I would much rather I would much rather wait till 2028 and 2025 because if we keep getting these
Well, but hang on, Leonard. I hate to disagree with you, but why do you think things are going to improve by 2028 if they don't improve in 2025 and don't improve in 2026 and don't improve in 2027?
I wouldn't know, but all I know is that
I think I'm losing you, Leonard. I think you're going in a tunnel on the light rail, but I appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Over on the Warrior Injury Law text line, Mike says, is this the hill Rakedahl wants to die on? Help him. Okay. Which is like, I don't think you mean it that way. I think you mean if you want this to ruin your political career, sure. Yeah, I think that's what he's saying. John in Lakewood, I'm glad the feds are getting involved. I hope they start putting executive level officials under arrest. Julie Moyer says we also need Doge here. Julie, how many times have we spoken about the Doge that is here? Our friend Glenn Morgan is running training for Doge right now. In fact, if you go over to the KVI website, you can see a write-up I did with my interview with Glenn Morgan from We the Governed and find out how to get involved in Doge Washington. Forrest Katz says, low-income senior homeowner barely making it, afraid of the Washington Democrats' property taxes. I drive to Olympia today, but my gas budget is still suffering from Jay Inslee's climate grift. Reminder, guys, today is that protest at 5 o'clock on the steps of the Capitol in Olympia. The protest against the property taxes. Let's Go Washington is going to be there, and I just found out Mr. KVI himself popped into my studio to tell me that Young Zach and Phil from the Morning Ride are going to be down there as well, so you get to meet them also. Lots more to discuss as the show continues, my friends. When we come back, the White House unveils its plan to axe NPR, which is just putting a huge smile on my face. Tell you all about that when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Why are we funding woke networks like NPR, PBS? Why are we funding them? We've had this discussion a bunch of times before, plus they have tons of properties like the Children's Television Workshop, Muppets, a.k.a. The Muppet Show, the Sesame Street, that have made them tons of money. Why do they need our taxpayer dollars on top of that? Now, on Monday, according to the New York Post, the Trump administration took its first step towards ending federal funding of NPR and PBS, informing key members of Congress that's asking them to eliminate all such spending while also codifying foreign aid cuts identified by the Department of Government Efficiency. The requests are contained in a rescissions plan obtained by the Post that pitches a clawback of $1.1 billion already appropriated for the Corporation of Public Broadcasting and $8.3 billion from U.S. aid. So what you need here is you need Congress to vote on it because that money was allocated by Congress. So you need Congress to vote on it so that way they have a chance of clawing back this money. A memo drafted by White House Budget Director Russ Vought and requested by GOP congressional leaders accuses CBP of a lengthy history of anti-conservative bias and cites waste, fraud, and abuse at U.S. aid. Formal transmission of the plan after the Easter recess will start a 45-day clock for the House and the Senate to adopt or reject the blueprint, which the White House believes will pass the required simple majority in each chamber, unlike President Donald Trump's 2018 rescission plan, which failed narrowly in the Senate. Now, this is fascinating, by the way, because if they actually get this done, the left can scream about it, but they don't get to say, you're not going through the right channels, you're not going through Congress, that money was appropriated by Congress. No, Congress can also pull back the money they appropriated because that's how the law works. That's how Congress works. So this is a great step in the right direction. And while we're talking about ridiculous things the federal government is funding, why are we funding Ivy League universities? I understand that research is done in some of these places, but if they can't decide the difference between a boy and a girl, why would you trust any research that comes out of these facilities? Why are we giving billions of dollars in funding to these Ivy League universities that have these massive endowment funds? I think Harvard's is over $53 billion. What do they need our money for from the U.S. government? Now, according to the Post-Millennial, as the Trump administration has been reviewing the $9 billion in federal funds going to Harvard, the Ivy League college said it will not comply with a list of orders given by the White House, including the dismantling of their DEI programs as well as auditing school programs that the Trump administration has said fuel anti-Semitic harassment or reflect ideological capture. On Monday morning, Harvard President Alan M. Garber announced that Harvard would not be complying of the list of orders from the Trump administration. And as a result, the Trump administration said, okay, you want to fool around? Now you're going to find out. And said it is cutting $2.2 billion to Harvard. So I want to know why any of these schools are getting federal funds. They have these massive endowment funds. They do not need the federal funds. If they're doing a project for the federal government, fine. I understand that in research or something. But if we're just paying for their DEI programs that have not made anything better on these campuses, why are we even paying for them? Forget the anti-Semitism aspect for a minute. Why are we giving these universities that have so much money all this money, this taxpayer money that we don't even technically have? So, you know who got mad about this? Barack Obama. That's right. Well-known Harvard alum.
Obama!
Exactly. Of their law school. Get all bent out of shape about this and is very, very mad. So, hang on. Let me make sure I got this right. Barack Hussein Obama is mad that the Trump administration, is mad that the Trump administration is cutting the money that is funding this terrorist insanity or allowing this terrorist insanity on college campuses. Well, it seems like he hasn't changed at all, has he? He was one of the most anti-Semitic presidents of my lifetime. So him saying, yeah, how dare you? I want to ask if the shoe is on the other foot. If there were a whole bunch of white supremacists on campus calling for the deaths of black people, would you support the cutting of the federal funding then? I know you would. So this is just exposing the hypocrisy. We all see right through you, Barack. We all see what's going on. including whatever's up with Big Mike these days. Not our Big Mike, your Big Mike these days. Meanwhile, when we come back, my friends, just to remind you, we have the Golden Age of America contest. Your chance to win $2,025 and a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, plus a new exclusive story about how a kid in a MAGA hat was assaulted by a professor at his own college. I'll give you the details on that when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.
Obama!
Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up this hour, the superintendent of the school district that is taking on creepy Chris Rakedahl, that has now brought in the feds, is going to be joining us to give us his perspective. But before we get to any of that, my friends, it is your chance to be part of the golden age of America.
The golden age of America, I call it. It's begun.
Thank you, President Trump.
And that's what it's going to be.
It's so nice of you to join us every single weekday at 4 o'clock to talk about the golden age.
We're going to usher in a new golden age of American success.
Yes, that's exactly what we're going to do right now. And we're going to tell you...
I proudly proclaim that the golden age of America is upon us.
Here's how you get to be part of the golden age of America.
Only in America.
Exactly right. It's your chance to win $2,025 and a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Now, when I give you the keyword, you're going to text it in, and you're only going to text in the keyword. You're not going to text in your number. You're not going to text in your address. You're not going to text in, hey, Ari Hoffman, you're really good looking. You're not going to text in any of that. Just,
come on.
Yeah, sorry, Hank Williams Jr. Just the word itself. You're going to text in the word work, as in it's really hard work to put together a show every single day.
Oh, yeah.
See, he knows what I'm talking about. That's WORK, work. Text it to 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Your next chance to win comes tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. during the morning ride with Phil Vandervoort. Check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout delivery order, and more. Also, a big thank you to President Trump, who is nice enough to join us weekdays for the Golden Age of America contest.
Well, and thank you, Ari. You do an incredible job and such an important voice. Thank you very much, Ari.
Always a pleasure to have you, sir. Now, also, speaking of Phil Vandervoort, him and Zach are down in Olympia, or they're heading to Olympia right now to be part of this protest against the raising of the property taxes in Olympia at 5 o'clock today on the Capitol steps. So if you want to meet Phil and you want to meet Zach and you want to be part of making sure your property taxes don't go up and you want to join the Republicans, other people in KVI Nation, people from Let's Go Washington, Brian Haywood, head on down to Olympia at 5 o'clock today. Be there on the Capitol steps.
The legend begins right here.
Thank you, Hank Williams Jr. Now, here, switching gears completely, is a story you're not going to get anywhere else.
Talk Radio 570 KVI, an Ari Hoffman Show exclusive.
We're very privileged on the show that we get to partner with people like Jonathan Cho. Jonathan Cho called me last week telling me about this story that nobody else in the media is reporting on. I don't want to call it reverse Jussie Smollett because that gives it an implication that didn't actually happen. This one, there's surveillance footage. There are arrest records. This actually happened, where a student at Washington State University was allegedly assaulted by a professor on campus. Why? Because the student was wearing a MAGA hat, and the professor was a communist who, in his picture for his school profile, has a hammer and sickle pin on his jacket. Here's Jonathan Cho's reporting for Frontline's Turning Point USA.
Pullman is farm country and is home to Washington State University, a campus that's focused on academic excellence and is supposed to be welcoming to diverse values and ideas.
So I was walking like this, my head down.
That's why Jay Sawney says he never imagined his political leanings would make him a target.
Patrick just probably hates Trump.
After a long day at work, the WSU junior says he got ambushed and jumped by Patrick Mahoney and Gerald Hoff.
Patrick ripped the hat on my head
for wearing this bright red Trump cap.
He said to me, "Go get it, bitch," or punched me a bunch of times on the back.
Sawney says they unleashed a vicious beatdown, all caught on surveillance cameras right in front of the Coug, a popular campus bar packed with students.
Gerald also kicked me also a bunch of times too. Patrick, he grabbed my chest, I slammed it on the concrete as I was falling.
He tried to defend himself.
So I had to go throw my food at his face.
But Sani says 2 against 1 was just unfair.
And I was like, what the hell just happened?
And the melee left him with multiple scrapes and bruises.
Because of this, yeah.
Pullman police eventually found the pair nearby within hours of the chaos.
I've seen this guy campus before. Okay. I know he's like right-wing dude.
Mahoney and Hoff pretty much admitted to the allegations.
I grabbed his hat, threw it, and I said go get it. We did grab him and bring him to the ground.
But tried to downplay the incident.
I didn't hit him. I don't think I did something illegal, right?
It's unwanted touching.
It's unwanted touching. I don't know what that is, right?
In fact, Mahoney tried to victim blame.
He wanted to fight. He got what was coming to him.
The officers didn't buy that story and arrested them on the spot.
You have the right to an attorney if you cannot afford one.
They're now facing 4th-degree misdemeanor assault charges.
See, the thing is that this country, was also built, around tolerance.
Sani says he doesn't know Hoff, but his prior interactions with Mahoney may have played a role in this assault, since the two are at opposite ends of the political spectrum.
Patrick said, I'm a communist because the system fails people.
Sani is a Republican and volunteers with conservative groups on campus like Turning Point USA.
Can you tell me about Patrick?
He seemed like a nice dude.
Mahoney is a WSU graduate student and instructor, teaching a freshman-level political science class.
Had his beliefs in...
By all accounts, Mahoney is a notorious far-left activist.
Of course, I'm going to think you are beyond insane.
Who hates conservative values and is a regular at pro-Hamas protests in the city.
Almost 30,000 Gazan civilians have been killed.
Recently, he was part of a group pressuring the Pullman City Council to pass a resolution calling for a ceasefire in Gaza, but that went nowhere.
To support the revolution, support the resolution.
Workers everywhere are rising up.
Sani says Mahoney has strong ties to the Democratic Socialists of America, progressive pro-labor groups, and is someone who publicly touts his admiration for the Communist Party. Look at the hammer and sickle pin he's wearing in this official school photo.
Mahoney's goal is to turn this country into a communist dictatorship or a communist authoritarian system.
I give him a hit to be like, don't with this anymore.
This violent incident happened in late February, and the school temporarily suspended Mahoney from classes and teaching duties. But Sani is speaking up now since he's hearing his attacker could be reinstated and doesn't want that to happen.
He really shouldn't be teaching here, in my opinion, because, if you can't tolerate different opinions, then what's the point?
School leaders would not comment on this matter, citing student privacy laws.
I wanted to see if Mr. Mahoney wants to tell his side of the story.
No, go away.
Mahoney refused to talk after I door-knocked him at his off-campus apartment.
Gerald's in the black. Gerald Hoff is in the black.
We were unable to reach Hoff to get his side of the story, but found his LinkedIn account indicating he's employed at WSU. Again, the school would not comment on Hoff's status either.
Trump won the elections because the left was so toxic.
Meanwhile, Sani is still wearing that MAGA cap and frequently getting dirty looks on campus. But he's also getting tons of love from students and faculty who respect him for sticking to his convictions.
You must be sick and tired of getting bullied.
It does become exhausting, yes.
The university is now preparing for an event on April 17th featuring TPUSA founder and CEO Charlie Kirk.
You can't express your beliefs as openly as some of the left-leaning students can. When I'm tabling for Turning Point here on campus, I've been cussed out, I've been flipped off.
It's already drawing online chatter from violent militant groups like Antifa and other left-leaning students who are promising to disrupt and cause chaos.
Now, I saw the video, the surveillance footage. Jonathan Cho sent it over to me completely unedited. This is a severe beatdown. This isn't knocking a hat off a head, which actually, by the way, is also assault. This isn't shoving somebody, which is also assault. This is a severe beatdown. One, I'm curious why the charges aren't more severe. But two, these guys both should have been fired by the school immediately. This happened back in February. The surveillance footage was there and available. And the only journalist to go get it was Jonathan Cho? This was available and nobody looked into it at all, which is beyond crazy. Oh, this guy has a Seattle connection too. This guy Mahoney, guess who he used to work with? Kshama Sawant and the Democrat Socialists of America. Does it surprise you that a whole bunch of communists are violent people? No, of course not. This was a vicious beatdown caught on camera. And if the rumors are true that Washington State University is considering reinstating these staff members, especially one who's a professor who's teaching political science, are you kidding me? If you are an alumni of Washington State University, you should be calling them. You should be emailing them and saying, why hasn't this guy been fired yet? Because the video's right there. Or are you not allowed to fire people for assault? Does this guy who's like a graduate student who's also teaching, does he somehow have tenure already? Is the union sticking up for him? I'm wondering why the charges are so little. Is this guy going to just be let off with a slap on the wrist and, oh, well, you know, it's a MAGA hat and it's Washington State, so you got what's coming to you? Because watching this kind of insanity, I'm worried the guy could walk. I'm worried the guy could walk. Now, Representative Congressman Michael Baumgarten, who just released a statement in response to the incident saying our campuses should be places of free expression, not political violence. WSU must act swiftly to protect students, uphold the values of civility, safety, and constitutional freedom. Now, by the way, he's a graduate of the place, and he represents Eastern Washington. Now, whether you like Donald Trump or whether you hate Donald Trump, a college teacher allegedly assaulted a student? Why hasn't every member of Congress from Washington spoken out, regardless of what party they're in? Why aren't there calls for full investigations into what happened? They should be going through every single frame of this footage for the charges, but also to say, yeah, dude, you were on videotape doing this. You're not keeping your job. Let me know what you think. Do you think it's the kind of thing where, oh, it's a MAGA hat, so we'll just let him go on his own way? Do you think it's that? You think something else is going here? But it's insane to me that because of all this, the only reason we have this story is because of our partnership with Jonathan Cho. And by the way, this story is trending on a week where Charlie Kirk from Turning Point USA, he's going to be on that campus on Thursday. That wasn't done in response to this. That was organized in advance of this, which means the Antifa lunatics are going to be out in force. So why do you think it is there aren't higher charges, and do you think this guy's going to get away with it? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Meanwhile, switching gears, Governor Bob Ferguson is now all big mad that Washington's application to the Federal Emergency Management Agency for disaster relief to assist with damages from storms in November, including the bomb cyclone, was recently denied. Washington claims that their damage estimate is $34 million, which is likely to increase as the state continues to update its information. The amount is so vast due to a series of storms that hit Washington last year. The state applied for relief in January to repair damage done to public highways, public utilities, and electrical power systems. FEMA denied the application without explanation on Friday, April 11th. Washington has 30 days to file for an appeal. My question is, do you think that Washington should even get this money? I remember the bomb cyclone. Look, 2 people died. It was no small storm. But what was the major damage that was done? I don't see Washington maintaining their power infrastructure, maintaining their highway infrastructure, when there's not a bomb cyclone or anything else. I'm not saying it wasn't a big storm, but at the same time, why haven't you guys maintained these things so they could withstand a storm? Washington blows money on everything, but they don't blow money on the things we actually need, like roads, bridges, power infrastructure. No, let's instead spend the money on laser hair removal for transgender inmates at the prisons. Let's instead spend the money on self-service stations. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about with those. The amount of money we blow on things around here is insane. Do you think Washington should get the FEMA money or not? Give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from our friend Transit Joe. Transit Joe, what's up, man?
What's up is my favorite president of all time just called for dignity and decency in Joe Biden, and it seems to me as if he's been abandoned by the woke mob.
Hang on a second. Joe Biden called for decency when he demonized every Republican in front of a blood red backdrop that was put up on Independence Hall in Philadelphia and said anybody who votes for Donald Trump is evil and right wing and basically called all of us Nazis? That Joe Biden's calling for decency?
Well, he didn't call anyone the N-word at one. Two, he did.
He called us right-wing extremists. What word was he trying to say, Joe?
He was trying to say reactionaries.
Well, he didn't say that, did he now? He called us right-wing MAGA extremists because we supported a different candidate other than him. And he threatened.
You're missing
this
my
is
point.
This is also the guy. Okay, what's your point? Make your point, Joe.
You're that the Democrats have abandoned the teachings of Joe Biden, and soon they will abandon the teachings of the greatest president in Redmond history and Jewish President Vanessa Kurtzer, and they will become absolute woke idiots that are so stupid they'll lose my vote, and I'll have to vote, God forbid, Republican again, and donate Republican, because I'm getting really sick and tired of this anti-democratic behavior, whether or not it's the state legislature, whether or not it's appeasing Alex Zimmerman, whether or not it's anti-Semitism in general. I think it's time for Democrats to listen to Joe Biden and start being nicer and stop, look, I don't like the Make America Great Again hat because Make America's already great. So I glare at it, but I don't touch somebody over a stupid hat. Come on, man. If you don't, you got to replace that kind of speech with better speech, like God bless America and God bless America and protect our troops and fly the American flag, on your hat. You hear what I'm saying?
I hear what you're saying. By the way, the MAGA hats have an American flag on the side of them, by the way, Joe. They all have a little American flag on the side. But I will say this is why I like having you on the show, Joe. There are other people on the left who just call to yell at me, but you always have some points you want to make even when we disagree on stuff. And I agree. The problem is the Democrat Party is becoming the party of AOC and Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, and civility is just leaving politics entirely. Joe, appreciate the perspective. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go back to the Warrior Injury Law studio line, take a call from Ted in Gig Harbor. Ted, what's going on, man?
Ari, do you remember when weather was weather?
Yes.
Now we got bomb cyclones. Oh, boy. And polar vortex. Oh, it's not just winter. It's polar vortex.
No. Summer's coming up. The heat dome is coming. The heat dome is coming back. Right? You remember that nonsense? We're all living under the heat dome as opposed to it's hot. It's hot outside. By the way, big shout out to my friends over at All Red Heating and Air Conditioning who hooked me up with a new air conditioning system just in time for the weather to turn. And you should check out their website right now. But All Red Heating and Air Conditioning, and they were able to do it with all of Seattle's insane regulations. Yeah, Ted, weather is just weather. It's beyond crazy that they have to name everything. Is that for dramatic effect? I remember when I was a kid, snowstorm nor'easter. They had that for bigger snowstorm. That's what that meant. Otherwise, it was just rain. It's going to rain a lot. It's going to be sunny. It's going to be hot. It's going to be humid. That's what I remember from the East Coast. We didn't have this terminology.
Yeah. And as for that damage, that's what insurance companies are for,
Well, does the government have insurance companies, or do they just count on the federal government to bail them out?
Oh, I don't know, but we don't deserve it. Let's face it.
Yes, I think a lot of people will agree with you and say keep cutting the funding from Washington. But I do caution you, Ted. Remember, then they're just going to say, well, because of Donald Trump, we need to tax you more, and the people in Seattle, King County, and Pierce County are just going to vote for more and more taxes. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show? You give us a call or text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. When we come back, my friends, Gavin Newsom is doubling down on dumb. He now is signing more money going to the budget to pay for benefits for illegal immigrants. Talk about a hell of your own making. We'll give you details when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. Well, you think things are bad here, my friends. Governor Gavin Newsom just signed a $2.8 billion bailout Monday to close the state's bloated deficit in California's Medicaid program, which surpassed projections due to the program's expansion last year due to illegal immigrants. Do you think that Medicaid dollars should be spent on illegal immigrants? Now, if a state wants to do that, I mean, I guess they could, but you're breaking federal law by doing that. And then they question, wait a minute, why does Donald Trump want to make cuts to our Medicaid program? Because it ain't supposed to be going to illegal immigrants. The move, confirmed by Newsom's office to Fox News, comes after the Democratic governor asked lawmakers last month for a $3.4 billion loan from the state's general fund to cover some $6.2 billion in outstanding cost for Medi-Cal, one of the state's primary health care programs that takes both federal and state taxpayer dollars. The additional funds will help keep the program running through June for some 15 million Californians, including non-citizens. So, how are Democrats going to run on this for the next election? We saved Medicaid from Donald Trump. And Republicans are going to say, you spent our tax dollars on illegal immigration, on illegal immigrants, on criminals who shouldn't even be here. This is nuts. I don't know how you plan on continuing to fund this program. You guys don't have the money. You have massive budget gaps. Oh, by the way, if the Democrats are successful in all the insanity they're doing right now, though in Olympia, you think they're not going to try the exact same thing here? Because it was one of the bills that was proposed to give more benefits to illegal immigrants. It's just one of the ones that got rejected because the backlash was so severe and they were running out of time. Of course, they're going to try something just as crazy around here. Now, earlier today, President Donald Trump signed an order that will ban illegal immigrants from obtaining Social Security benefits, cracking down on preventing fraudulent Social Security claims. The order released from the White House stated that it is aimed at stopping illegal aliens and other ineligible people from obtaining Social Security Act benefits, and that directs the administration to ensure ineligible aliens are not receiving funds from Social Security Act programs. Now, you and I know this is a good thing, but guaranteed the Democrats are going to go ballistic and say, Donald Trump's cutting Social Security benefits. Just watch, just watch. And we've seen some of the fraudulent Social Security claims that Elon Musk and Doge have been targeting. They're working to cut waste, fraud, and abuse out of government spending. The order expands the Social Security Administration's fraud prosecutor program to at least 50 U.S. attorney offices and establishes a Medicare and Medicaid fraud prosecution program in 15 U.S. attorney offices. Hey, guys, I have a tip for you. Newsom, $2.8 billion. Newsom just did it in California. Go after him. That's waste. That's fraud. That's abuse. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from the Grumpy Dragon in Algona. Grumpy Dragon, how can I help you today?
Well, I finally figured out what DEI stands for, and it doesn't mean diversity, inclusion, and equity. It means don't encourage intelligence.
That's not a bad one. That's not bad at all. You get a rim shot for that one because you're exactly right. Because how much have the grades gone down since they started implementing it? As we say on the show all the time, you cannot show me a single school whose grades got better after they imposed DEI, right?
That's right. Because why do you want somebody that actually knows how to do arithmetic, that can actually read orders, and can actually write down what's going on?
Oh, because you mean an educated public might realize that the Democrat policies are really, really bad, and instead of protesting in the streets will be a productive member of society and vote for other candidates than the Democrats?
Hey, that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah, that is. Tell me, sir, why do you call yourself the Grumpy Dragon?
Because I am grumpy, and I am a dragon.
Okay, if you were driving like a Trans Am Firebird type deal or something, then we'll definitely call you the Grumpy Dragon. But you can call yourself that anytime when you give us a call. Appreciate the call. Appreciate you being part of the show. You want to be part of the show, you give us a call or a text at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Don't forget, you have until 5 o'clock to enter the word we gave you at 4 o'clock for your chance to be part of the golden age of America. When we come back, the La Center Superintendent Correspondent Rosenkrantz will be joining us to tell us what it's like taking on Chris Rakedahl and the Washington government, now especially that the Trump administration is riding to the rescue. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. While I was offline for Passover, the U.S. Department of Education's Office of the General Counsel initiated an investigation into the Washington Office of the Superintendent of Public Instruction due to concerns that Chris Reykdal and OSPI are requiring the La Center School District to implement policies that potentially conflict with and violate federal laws. So, for example, this school district has said they're not going to hide gender identity from parents. And, of course, Chris Reykdal and OSPI seem to have a problem with that. Joining us now to discuss on the KVI studio line is the principal of the La Center School District, Superintendent Peter Rosencrantz. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Hey, thank you, Ari. I appreciate having the opportunity to talk about this.
Such a pleasure. Let's go back in time for a second. We've discussed the story a number of times on the show. So you guys have your policies. You've had your policies in place. The superintendent had an issue with them, and then catch us up on what's kind of happened since then.
Absolutely. So this has been drawn out over a couple years now, and we very much value the partnership we have with parents, and hiding things from parents leaves them on the sideline of their child's education. It's too complex to do without the parents. I need parents reading with kids. I need them asking about their math homework. Our job is to educate, and the family's job is to raise them. And when it comes to gender identity or any identity, it really belongs with the family. And so in the law, RCW 28A 642080, it allows school districts to adopt or amend the model policy. And so the school board, the school board and I made a decision to amend the policy, including parents. Again, they're the first teacher. We only actually in a calendar year see them 17% of the time. 83% of the time they're with their parents. They tuck them in at night, they feed them dinner, they provide shelter, and they love on them. And I believe what Chris Reykdal's model policy does is assume parents are dangerous and does not account for the unconditional love a parent has for their child.
Right. And the policy right there seems like the state thinks it can do a better job parenting the child than the parents. And because you guys did this, he then threatened to withhold funding from you guys. Is that correct?
That is correct. I've only received a couple of threats in my career as a superintendent and an educator, and both have been from Chris Reykdal. And that's kind of fascinating, given that we're supposed to be working with families with their children. I have 3 of my own. I love them dearly, and I have enough. It's good. And my job is to grow brain cells. It's in the simplicity lies its complexity. It's not rocket science, but it is brain surgery, because we are trying to grow brain cells. And the policy itself, the state policy determines or declares that parents are dangerous, and the child is the one that determines whether they're dangerous or not. You know, and we have a longstanding system called Child Protective Services. If we feel a child is harmed or in harm's way, we're a mandatory reporter, and we will make that report and work with CPS and continue to work with families to educate their children.
Also, in addition to that, the kids have the opportunity to reach out to various agencies if they think there's some kind of problem and nobody's listening to them. They can do that as well. And yet you have Chris Reykdal, who's putting all these threats on you guys for just saying we're on the side of parents and we think parents should be partners in education. And doesn't that lead to kids getting better scores when parents are sitting over their shoulders and making sure they're doing their homework, et cetera, et cetera?
Absolutely. And we're starting to see the fruits of their labor. We're not losing kids to private school. And I mean, we do have we have families that choose to go to private school and homeschool. Absolutely. But we're not losing the volume of kids like you're seeing around the state. And we passed our recent levy by 10 percentage points above where we ran our last levy, and the highest margin of anyone in Clark County. So the parents speak out. They've been very supportive of what we're trying to do, that we stay in our lane. Academics is our lane. And of course, we'll work on cooperation and all the other aspects that come with an education, but it's all what parents expect. There's no surprises. And when you start asking pronouns, for example, the questioning is an instructional tool. When I start asking pronouns, now I'm teaching kids about pronouns, and the OSPI thinks we should do that down to kindergarten. And it doesn't make sense. If kids want to know, state law is that if they have a pronoun they want to use that's different, they tell us, and we'll use it. Now, I don't have to ask, though. And it's up to them. If they're ready to share it, because public school, it's a public setting, or a small town, and you share it with 25 other kids, it'll get back to parents and families when other kids are calling you another name or a different pronoun. We respect every single kid that comes through our door, regardless of how they identify. And we respect their family. Family could be a mom and a dad, 2 moms, 2 dads, aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa, that foster care, that's their family. I don't have judgment on that. Send me your kids. Let me teach them. That's our job.
Right. Continue. Sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
If you trust me enough to send me your children, then I want to do the very best I can to help them read. And I don't even call it back to basics because the pandemic put us so far behind. It's advanced to basics. And we're starting to see the fruits of that labor of working on instructional strategies to teach kids reading and math, focusing on reading and math in elementary school, and focusing on being career ready by the time they graduate for what I call grade 13, which is the year immediately following high school.
My God, what a refreshing approach to education. You mean to actually educate kids and then try and get them ready for life so then they can go forward? It's so rare that we hear that. We've seen that these days. It seems like a lot of educators just kind of want to make the kids into political activists. I mean, if you asked me my pronouns when I was in kindergarten, I would have said my pronouns are Jedi Knight and I'm Luke Skywalker. That's how that would have gone down. And trusting a kindergartner to answer that question is absolutely insane. So in the last few minutes we have with La Center School Superintendent Peter Rosenkrantz. Now this letter has come out signaling that there's an investigation from the Department of Education into OSPI. Have things changed? Have you heard anything from OSPI regarding this situation? Because when I asked them for a statement, they doubled down and called it government overreach and seemed like they were ready to fight this thing.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh. This is not flippant, but FERPA is a federal law. Title IX is a federal law. So the federal government coming in to enforce federal law is overreach. I find that fascinating. I welcome the opportunity to work. We have routinely reached out to OSPI to try to collaborate on this issue, and they have refused to collaborate. It's my way or the highway, and they put us in an untenable situation of either follow state law or federal law. And, we're in the United States of America. Federal law carries the day, especially on FERPA and Title IX. And we haven't even picked up the Title IX issue yet, but that's coming as part of their investigation into OSPI. And it's a welcome relief.
This is going to be fun to watch, and I can't believe me as a conservative is begging for federal intervention here in Washington. But it may be the way we get some of these things done. Mr. Rosenkrantz, thank you so much for fighting so hard for the kids in your district, for the parents in your district, and thank you so much for joining us today. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to share our story.
Always a pleasure. We got a whole lot more to discuss as the show continues. You're listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570. Welcome to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI, your home for the politically homeless, streaming live at KVI.com and on the KVI app. If you want to be part of the most dangerous show on the airwaves, call or text the Warrior Injury Law Studio line at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. But before we get to any of that, as you heard from KVI News at the top of the hour, Joe Biden is speaking tonight about Social Security. I don't think Joe Biden needs Social Security because his family seems to have done very well off his political career. But press secretary was speaking earlier today, and she was asked about the fact that Joe Biden was having this little speech tonight. Here's what she said.
My first reaction when seeing former President Biden was speaking tonight was I'm shocked that he is speaking at nighttime. I thought his bedtime was much earlier than his speech tonight. I understand the topic of his speech will be Social Security. Let me make it very clear ahead of former President Biden's remarks. President Trump, is absolutely certain about protecting Social Security benefits for law-abiding, tax-paying American citizens and seniors who have paid into this program. He will always protect that program. He campaigned on it, he protected it in his first term, and he's back again to continue protecting it.
By the way, as we mentioned a little bit earlier in the show, Donald Trump today banned illegal immigrants from getting Social Security. The Democrats aren't mad thinking he's going to shut down Social Security for you. They're mad that he's going to shut it down for illegal immigrants. Social Security is going bankrupt. I believe the expiration was 2035 when we're in real trouble. So you would think you want to make reforms to it, but instead the Democrats have said, how many more people can we get into the system getting the benefits, not how can we get more money for the system itself. You would think that by cutting out all these people, the Democrats would then have more money so that seniors who are American citizens can get the Social Security benefits they've paid into their whole lives. But no, they want them for every illegal immigrant because then they figure they get more people in their voter base who are dependent on the federal government and then will vote for Democrats. What kind of people are we talking about here? So here's one for you. 2 men have been arrested and charged in connection to the kidnapping, torture, and shooting of a woman from Burien. This is according to Como News. Kevin Daniel Sanabria Ojeda, 24, and Alexander Moses Arnaz Gutierrez, 25, were both charged this week with kidnapping, robbery, and attempted murder in King County Superior Court. According to charging documents, Sanabria Arnaz Gutierrez kidnapped the woman from an apartment complex in Burien on January 21st around 10 p.m. as she was arriving home from work. Investigators said the pair forced the woman into a car and fired a gun during the struggle. According to investigators from the King County Sheriff's Office, they used a power drill to drill into the victim's hand to get access to her cell phone and bank accounts. They then threatened her by telling her they were going to kill her family, feed her to the bears, and dump her body far, far away. Do these sound like homegrown criminals to you? Or does this sound like that scene out of American Sniper where you have the butcher of Baghdad who's got the drill? According to an arrest report, the pair then drove the woman to Kittitas County and shot her on the side of I-90. They shot her on a mountain pass and left her for dead. The woman waited for 15 minutes before climbing over a retaining wall, flagging down help. She was taken to Harborview Medical Center for treatment and provided an interview there to detectives. And then she said that she thought the men thought they had killed her when they shot her, but was able to survive and got hit in the shoulder instead. King County Sheriff's Office enlisted the help of the FBI to investigate the case. The week after the kidnapping and shooting, police located their car at a motel in Illinois. Investigators conducted a surveillance, watched them on surveillance video, and they saw it was the suspects. They also found, during a search, they found stolen jewelry belonging to the woman who was kidnapped and shot. Investigators said both men pose a risk to the public because they allege that they have probable ties to the Tren de Aragua Venezuelan gang. Wow. Anybody surprised by this at all? Because the drill to the hand, the feeding you to the bears, that doesn't sound like homegrown criminals. That sounds like something completely different. But these are the people Joe Biden wants to put on Social Security. ICE released today that they have arrested over 1,000 illegal immigrant workers that propose nearly $1 million in employer fines and have imposed, nearly $1 million in employer fines since January 20th as part of its worksite enforcement mission. So what's going on here is you are now bringing these people to this country and also giving them jobs even though they're illegal immigrants. So how many more of these criminals are we emboldening? I know there are people who want to come to this country for the right reasons, but it seems like there's a lot of people who want to come here for all the wrong reasons. So, you want another example of what's going on here? Do you know that the illegal immigrant who killed Christopher Gadd, the Washington State trooper, may be getting released? Would you like to know why? On a technicality. Como News has a story for us.
Camera video shows the moment responding state troopers got to the scene of a deadly crash that killed a trooper and began questioning the other driver involved.
Now defense attorneys are questioning whether evidence and statements that driver made that night should be allowed at trial. Como's Leanne Wynn brings us the latest developments from Snohomish County.
Are you okay? Are you all right?
Body camera video shows a first-hand look at the initial moment officers arrived on scene the night trooper Christopher Gadd was killed while working a DUI patrol. Prosecutors say the driver, Raul Benitez Santana, crashed into Gadd while speeding more than 100 miles an hour. Video shows responding officers speaking to the suspect just moments later.
I got disabled on the freeway and then someone came and hit me. Somebody hit you? Yes. Where were you at on the freeway? I'm not sure. Everything went off and then okay.
The suspect also admitted to drinking beer and smoking marijuana, but the suspect's defense attorneys question whether he was given his Miranda rights and say he wasn't in the right mindset, so statements he made on scene and at the hospital should not be presented at trial.
We don't have footage to see when Miranda was given and what Mr. Benitez Santana's actual physical and emotional and mental state was at the time.
Defense attorneys also say officers failed to get a warrant before the suspect's blood was drawn, and that blood evidence should also not be allowed at trial, though prosecutors argue there are legal reasons for the officers' decisions that night, and it ultimately took hours after the crash to get that warrant.
In the meantime, of course, the defendant's blood, alcohol or drugs are dissipating every minute, and they're faced with this situation of not knowing when and if medications are going to be introduced into his bloodstream.
Reporting in Everett, Leanne Wynn, Como News.
A decision on whether the evidence will be allowed at trial is expected next week.
So the question is this guy going to get off because of a technicality? Look, we got a problem here is that when somebody's drinking or somebody's high, by the time you actually get the warrant, the stuff may be out of their system. I think that here's a reasonable thing, and you can call me and you can weigh in if you think this is reasonable. I think you should be allowed to take the stuff subject to the search warrant being approved. If the search warrant is approved, then you get to use the stuff. If the search warrant is not approved, then you don't get to use that stuff. I think that's a fair middle ground. What do you think? 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. But it sounded like to me that his lawyers were admitting he was high because he admitted he was high. They said he wasn't in the right mindset to be making those decisions. Why? Because he was high. This is a guy who should have been deported, but Governor Jay Inslee made us a sanctuary state and kept the guy here. This is somebody who was in the state, who had committed domestic violence beforehand, who had been guilty of DUI issues beforehand, but was kept in state because Governor Jay Inslee wanted him here. He felt bad for him. The Columbia Jewish Alumni Association was pointing out the latest student to be arrested. Student. I'm going to use air quotes to talk about this student who was arrested at Columbia. They said everyone's upset that ICE detained Columbia student Masin Madawi. But before you cry your eyes out, read this. Madawi started college in 2008. He spent 6 years at Birzeit University, then another 10 at Dartmouth, Lehigh, and Columbia. That's 16 full-time years of undergraduate, and he wasn't done yet. He was planning to enroll at a different program in Columbia next year. My God, this is worse than Bluto at Animal House.
7 years of college down the drain.
Yeah, exactly. This guy's a perpetual student, so he's living off the system. He's living off the charity of others so he can be a Hamasnik. Assuming he started at 18, he's now pushing 35. By the time he wrapped up grad school, he'd be 37. That's almost 2 decades of very expensive colleges. This isn't a great education plan, but it's a great green card strategy if you can afford it. And this is a guy who's been photographed holding guns. He's been on tape supporting Hamas. This is a guy who told CNN that he was, 60 Minutes, told 60 Minutes he was excited about the October 7th terrorist attacks. That's who this guy is. And yet, oh, don't deport the Hamasnik. Now, this is like what's going on with Abreu Garcia. So this is the guy, Kilmar Abreu Garcia. This is the one that's gained all the international attention. This is the guy who the media keeps describing as a Maryland man who got shipped off to El Salvador. They say mistakenly, but what the White House keeps claiming, what the Trump administration keeps claiming, is that he had ties to MS-13 gang. Now, here is Caroline Levitt today making the case that this is a guy who had ties to gangs.
Yesterday in the Oval Office, administration officials made it very clear that El Salvador is responsible for Mr. Abreu Garcia, yet El Salvador's president said we're not going to do anything with him. So my question is, who is responsible for this man and where he's going to end up?
Well, no. First of all, President Bukele said that he is not going to smuggle a foreign terrorist back into the United States of America, as many in this room in the Democrat Party seemingly want him to do. Abreu Garcia was a foreign terrorist. He is an MS-13 gang member. He was engaged in human trafficking. He illegally came into our country. And so deporting him back to El Salvador was always going to be the end result. There is never going to be a world in which this is an individual who's going to live a peaceful life in Maryland, because he is a foreign terrorist and a MS-13 gang member. Not only have we confirmed that, President Bukele yesterday in the Oval Office confirmed that as well. So he went back to his home country, where he will face consequences for his gang affiliation and his engagement in human trafficking. I'm not sure what is so difficult about this for everyone in the media to understand, and it's appalling, truly appalling, that there has been so much time covering this alleged human trafficker and this gang member, MS-13 gang member. It's truly striking to me.
The media keeps calling him a Maryland man, but they don't really provide any proof. They just say he says he's innocent. Have you ever met a criminal who said they weren't innocent? So, or rather that they said, oh yeah, I committed that crime. Have you ever met any of those criminals? She went on to slam the media more about this.
The Democrat and media outrage over the deportation of Abreu Garcia, an MS-13 El Salvadorian illegal alien criminal who is hiding in Maryland, has been nothing short of despicable. Based on the sensationalism of many of the people in this room, you would think we deported a candidate for Father of the Year. That's because, unfortunately, many in this country care more about this quote-unquote Maryland father, a legal alien MS-13 gang member, than a Maryland mother and an American citizen who was brutally murdered at the hands of a different illegal alien. Of course, I am referring to Rachel Morin. And if you didn't see yesterday, a Maryland jury found illegal alien Victor Antonio Martinez Hernandez guilty of murdering Rachel Morin in August of 2023. She was a 37-year-old mother of 5 who was jogging in an otherwise safe community northeast of Baltimore when this monster ambushed, strangled, and beat her to death before stuffing her brutalized body in a tunnel drain. The Morin family finally got justice yesterday, but they will never get Rachel back. Our hearts go out to Rachel's family, her 5 children, and her mother, Patty, who has suffered the unimaginable loss of her daughter.
Do you know why the media didn't cover what happened to Rachel Morin? Because it would have helped Donald Trump get elected. They saw what happened with Lake and Riley. The Lake and Riley case was first. Rachel Morin's case was second. And they knew that the more and more of these cases that came out, they said, nope, we're not covering these anymore. We're going to downplay them as much as possible. Press secretary wasn't putting up with that nonsense.
It's mind-boggling, the priorities of the modern-day Democrat Party. I think it's atrocious that you have Democrats in Congress on Capitol Hill who swear an oath to protect their constituents and to serve them in Washington, D.C., spending more time defending illegal immigrant gang members than their own constituents and law-abiding American citizens like Rachel Morin. And I saw the president personally on the campaign trail, and I continue to see him in his role as president of the United States put American families first, reach out to the victims, the families of victims at the hands of illegal immigrant crime. And frankly, the actions and the words of the Democrat Party prove they could not care less about the American public. And maybe if they did, they'd see a bit higher approval ratings right now.
They want the illegal immigrants to get Social Security, want the illegal immigrants to get all these other benefits for breaking the law and coming into this country, and for a lot of times being criminals. Now, here's the challenge I'm going to put out to the mainstream media. You believe this is just a Maryland father. Aside from saying he has a wife and he has kids, what proof do you have that he isn't an MS-13 gang member? What proof do you have that he wasn't involved in illegal activity? I haven't seen it yet. The Trump administration is saying that this guy is a gang member. So what proof do you have that he's not? Plenty of criminals have wives. Plenty of criminals have children. If you want to tell me that this guy is not a criminal, show me the proof that he's not a criminal. I have a question that I haven't heard a lot of other people ask in the media. I want to know why this guy had a hold on him in the first place. Was he some kind of snitch for the gangs, against the gangs, on the gangs? Was he in some kind of witness protection program, hiding out as a Maryland father? If he was that, and we were supposed to be protecting this guy, and we accidentally deported him, then we have a real problem. My advice to the media would be to actually find out what that was all about, why there was a hold on this guy in the first place. That's something I'm very, very curious about, and nobody's really given me a good answer for that. I know that sometimes when we discuss international stuff, specifically when it goes to Israel and such, sometimes when I ask for some stuff from the Israeli government, I don't get it because it could compromise other investigations that are going on. It could compromise surveillance technology. Are they worried about that, which is why they haven't revealed that? I don't know, but I want to know what you think. Do you think this guy should be brought back? Supreme Court says so. Trump administration says they don't want to bring him back. El Salvador says they don't want to bring this guy back. Do you think this guy should be back in the U.S.? And do you think it's interesting that nobody's covering why there was a hold on this guy in the first place? Give me a call or a text. 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. We go to the Warrior Injury Law Studio line. Take a call from our friend Debbie, who we haven't heard from in a very long time. Debbie, what's going on?
Well, I'm going to send you an article that I found that deals with all of this. It goes against the narrative that you're thinking, so you'll probably think it's fake news. But what it says is that this guy's family had a business in El Salvador. They were being shaken down, whatever, by a gang. Mm-hmm. And his brother actually there was some ransom, something about his brother. His brother got sent up here. He's now an American citizen. The same thing was going to happen to this guy. He got brought up here. That is why he was brought up here, was because of fear of retaliation from these gangs, because his family's business wouldn't play along with the mafia-type extortion or whatever was happening. He gets up here. He is here, yes, he's here illegally. When he is suspected of being a gang member, it's based on what's called double hearsay. A detective wrote up a report based on a confidential informant that was never produced. The detective was suspended from his job, so nobody has ever said or proven the allegation. A judge held up that there was most likely evidence that he was not a member of a gang. So that's where the court was saying he was not a gang member.
So wait a second, Debbie. I'm giving you benefit of the doubt here, okay, because you and I have very rational conversations. Can you do me a favor? Can you send me that article, and I will also look up the court cases so I can see exactly what you're talking about, because this is the first time I've heard most of this. So ari@kvi.com, you have my email. You email it over to me. I will check it out, because I'm more wondering why that hold was there in the first place, because that question has not been answered by anybody. Don't you agree that's a little odd?
Well, that's what I'm saying is I found this article that says this. So what, and I will send it. It's from some law site. Now you're probably not going to like it because it's a law site based out of the Brookings Institute, which you probably have no faith in. So
well,
I don't know
to be fair about the Brookings Institute for a second here, okay? I've quoted the Brookings Institute before when they have supported my narrative. I've torn into them when I've disagreed with them. But if I'm going to quote them as fact when they agree with me, it would be dishonest and disingenuous of me to not read this and at least give it its due and try to fact check it, right?
Correct. So I'm grateful that you're giving it. I'm grateful that you are giving it its due. I'm finding the article right now.
No problem. Take your time, Debbie. You send it over when you get a chance. But you told Mike you were disappointed in me. Why are you disappointed in me?
I'm disappointed, and I mean, it probably doesn't mean much, but you know, the Supreme Court said something, the judge said something, you know, saying he needed to stay here, and nobody seems to care that the court or that the administration is completely ignoring an order going, oh, well. On top of that, this El Salvadoran dictator that Trump loves, by the way, has already said he's going to spend the rest of his life in this prison, and nobody seems to care. I mean, if I don't know, and maybe I'm backing the wrong horse and I could be completely wrong, but if we are a nation of laws and you're mad that our state isn't upholding certain federal laws that we should be, and I agree, whether I agree or disagree with a law, it's a law. Until it's changed, it needs to be done. Title IX is one of, anyhow, I digress. My point is that I think it's really disappointing that people are okay with the Trump administration completely ignoring all of this and playing cute with the word facilitate. I was disgusted when Bill Clinton did it with the word is. It's, you know, semantics when you're dealing with a human being or with anything should be disappointing.
So
and
I'll say something in my defense. I'll say something in my defense here, Debbie, is that the last thing I said right before I took your call was that the Supreme Court says this guy should come back and the Trump administration says they're not honoring that. And then I asked for questions on this. I probably should have gone down the rabbit hole a little bit more that says if you like a whole bunch of these Supreme Court rulings in favor of the Trump administration, you should say, why aren't you guys following this one? But what I will do is I will read everything you send over to me. You got to give me a day or two, Debbie. I'm not sure I'm going to get to it tonight, but you give me some time to read it all over, and let me see if this changes my opinion, okay?
Okay, I understand. Can I just ask you a question? Do you have a red line with him at all? Do you agree that he should be sending American criminals down there and they should build more prisons, even if they're the worst of the worst? Are you supportive of that? And if so, why? And I just wonder if Trump has if there's a red line at all that he could do that you go, this is a bridge too far, I can no longer support it.
Well, Debbie, you listen to the show all the time. We've criticized him when we think he's wrong. We did that a lot, especially when he wasn't president. When we don't agree with something the Trump administration does, we do call it out. However, you have an interesting problem here, and I'll draw a comparison to the Middle East, and then I got to run for a second, right? So let's say everybody they're saying is a criminal is a criminal. Let's just take that as a given for 2 seconds for the sake of argument here. Let's say every single person is a criminal, and we don't want them here and they're all illegal immigrants. What are we supposed to do with them?
Well, I mean, that's a good, I don't know. And I'll be honest with you, I don't know the answer to that. I just say I'm just talking about this particular case. There's been a hold. It was a clerical error. And by the way, that attorney was fired by the DOJ today for saying it was a clerical error. The Attorney General's office fired him, which, you know, if you're an officer of the court, you're not supposed to lie to the court, but he's been fired. So that was interesting. I don't know the bigger question. I just know with this guy, for him to be sent down there, and basically, I guess it's a death sentence. That's where he's going to be, and maybe most people listening don't care. But it's a problem that the Trump administration seems to be ignoring this court order, and think it should be worrisome. That's all I'm saying.
I hear your point, Debbie. So I'll tell you what. You send me over all that stuff. I'll do some reading on it, as I always do, and we'll talk about it another time, okay?
Okay, and I'm glad you had a nice Passover.
Thank you, Debbie. That's very kind of you to say. Really do appreciate it. Always appreciate when people call to disagree with us. You want to be part of the show or disagree with us, you give us a call at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. While Debbie and I were talking, a lot of you blew up the text line with your opinions on all this. We'll take that and your calls when we come back. But first, Todd Herman's Daily Thoughtcast, right now on the Ari Hoffman Show. Welcome back to the Ari Hoffman Show. Just a reminder, coming up at 5:45, your chance to win fantabulous prizes, including a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Yeah, another reason, always keep your radio tuned to 570 KVI. Left on your dial, always right on the issues. You can also stream us at KVI.com, download the KVI app, and, of course, subscribe to us on whatever your preferred podcast platform is. Text line listeners had some very, very strong feelings on the last phone call we got, but also on the last segment we did about illegal immigration. This one referencing the illegal immigrant who allegedly killed Washington State Trooper Christopher Gadd. The 206 says, in Washington State, if a driver is suspected of DUI, They are required to submit to a breath or blood test due to the state's implied consent law. Refusal to take the test will result in a 1-year suspension of the driver's license. It can be used as evidence against them in court. Excellent point, 206. Excellent, excellent point. This one from Eben and Bonnie Lake. What would the story be if a straight white guy was drunk and high and hit and killed an illegal immigrant? Well, I think you're kind of seeing that play out right now. I think that's exactly what's going on. Ted says, Ari, under no circumstances should that gangbanger be let back into the country. Ted also adds, those Dems, they love them some gangbangers and some terrorists. This one here from Rob, he says, you can't compel a foreign national to send us one of their citizens. Bottom line, it's no take-backsies mistake. Good points. Got about a minute left, so we go very quickly to the Warrior Injury Law studio line. Take a call from Stilgar. Stilgar, make it fast, my friend, then I got to run.
Okay, well, I'm just wondering if anybody in the press is ever going to ask any Democrats why they prefer criminals over law-abiding citizens. They're about to pass a permit to purchase, which is going to infringe on our gun rights. Meanwhile, they're lowering the penalties for anything resembling gun crimes or anything like that, and they're letting everybody else out.
You're 100% right, Stilgar. 100% right. So you know what? Tomorrow we actually have that topic as one of the leads of one of the hours on the show. I think the 4 o'clock hour for tomorrow, we're going to be talking all about the gun stuff. We're going to have some gun experts to discuss all of that. And we're going to be sending some emails to some Democrats to get their requests for comment on why they're reducing crime or penalties, reducing penalties on criminals and not letting us protect ourselves. Stilgar, great point. We will have that for you tomorrow. You want to be part of the show? Give us a text at 206-421-5757. When we come back, believe it or not, people are still being not allowed to come back to work and not being given proper compensation for not getting the COVID jab. We'll give you the latest insanity when we come back. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. My friends, it's 5 years after COVID, and we are still dealing with the fact that so many people were fired because the city of Seattle refused to give them accommodations, refused to grant any accommodations, or claim they were going to grant accommodations, and then wouldn't regarding the vax mandate. And there are still a lot of people who want their jobs back or want settlements. And what's fascinating to me is this was an easy fight, an easy fix for the city. They could have fixed this super easy, but some of these fights are still dragging out, and people still have claims against the city. Joining us now to discuss on the KVI studio line, Jessica Boyd and Darren Johansson. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Such a pleasure. Now, Jessica, why don't we start with you? You were working for the city. You asked for medical accommodations, and they did what they usually do. Tell us your story.
So actually, it was a religious exemption that I applied for.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I put in my religious application to be exempt from, the mandate. It was approved. And then I was given an opportunity to kind of have a conversation back and forth with, what would that process look like, if you were allowed to stay currently working unvaccinated. And all the ideas that I gave them, basically at the end, it was denied, saying that it was just an undue hardship upon everybody else, that would be coming in the library as a patron or staff.
Right. So you were working for the library at the time, and I got to ask, how many people are actually coming to the library during COVID?
In the beginning, none. Security was the only one working for the parking garage, and nobody showed up for that. And then we kind of gradually went to curbside. And then as we opened the building, we slowly opened all floors, not at once. And so it was a slow start. Not a lot of people were coming in.
So my question is, how could you have been a threat to anybody? Because it's not like there were a lot of people actually even going to the library at this time. And I believe this is when they told all us parents, oh, yeah, screen time doesn't matter anymore. Just let the kids watch whatever they want.
Right, yes. I think one of the reasons that I was given was that unvaccinated people were 7 times more likely to contract it and spread it.
Unbelievable. Now, you've probably seen the documentation since then. It's been 5 years. We revealed a lot of it on this show. We got a lot of the documentation showing that, yes, King County Health and other health agencies here in Washington State said they knew the vaccine did not stop the spread, but they kept this mandate in place anyway. The mayor's office did it. The governor's office did this kind of stuff. So once you found out that kind of stuff, did that change your perception of what was going on?
Yeah, absolutely. It was frustrating because I didn't understand the whole time that COVID, was going on before the mandate. We were masking, we were doing daily temperature testing, social distancing, and taking all these precautions that, from what I understood, worked, right? Because why else are we all there? But then all of a sudden, the mandate, comes down and everything just went out the window. And so when you hear those guidelines and, the CDC and whoever saying that, this kind of doesn't really work or help, then it just kind of leaves you at a loss and just generally confused and frustrated.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane, especially because you can see that they knew what was actually going on, and yet they kept saying, no, it's mandated, which is beyond crazy. So what are you asking for from the city right now? It's been 3-4 years since this whole mess started. What are you asking them for, and what have they told you?
I think ultimately it's back pay. I was kept in limbo for about 8 months. Mm-hmm. And so, obviously I wasn't able to, draw unemployment because I was still employed. They weren't issuing me a paycheck because I couldn't return. I wasn't vaccinated. And so I'm definitely looking for back pay. Recently, I was offered a settlement that was very, very small compared to the amount of what my back pay was.
I saw the numbers you sent me. It looked like it was a fraction of it. I mean, we're talking like Absolutely. An eighth of a tank, something like that is what we're talking about. Okay.
Exactly. And it's,
Yeah. No, I hear your frustration. Believe me, we talked to the firefighters about this. We talked to the police officers about this. Darren, switching over to you for a second, you're involved in a lot of these cases around Seattle. You're involved in some of the bigger cases around Seattle. Are you seeing any shifts, any changes now that it's been so long since this? I mean, they talk about, hey, we should hire these guys back because we have a staffing shortages. Maybe it'd be easy to make deals with people. I see some moves being made, but they have the easiest solutions in front of them, and they just don't take it.
Well, yes, and that is true. So really the only lawsuit that I'm involved with is the one that I am a member of. I do know of the other lawsuits that are going on, firefighters being one. And then there's also some incidental onesie-twosies, just former employees that went out and retained attorneys on their own. They didn't join a group like my group and the firefighter group. They just went at it on their own. And honestly, just recently, like literally last week, I heard from reliable sources that one of those individual people actually did settle with the city out of court for just under $1 million.
Wow.
And that's for lost back wages. It's probably not too much in the form of front wages, like lost retirements, but my understanding was $900,000-ish, what that person settled for.
Gotcha. So do you think this is something where the city is going to go, okay, well, this is the precedent and this is just what everybody's going to get, or do you think there were special circumstances in that case? What's your gut feeling?
So it is definitely special circumstances, and I say that because I didn't even realize this until somebody explained it to me, that the city of Seattle is what's called self-insured, and they're self-insured for up to $10 million for any one given lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
And so this person, this individual who just settled out of court, was asking for under that amount, right? So when she was going through her depositions and court filings and everything, she was dealing directly with the city attorney's office. That's not the case for the rest of us. Which is, I'm not entirely sure why that is, because we're all still individual plaintiffs. We just happen to belong to an umbrella group that's suing the city, but we're all individual plaintiffs. And as long as we're under that 10 million mark in what our damages, what we're asking for, we by all rights should be facing the city attorney's office, not this huge nationwide law firm. I think it's pronounced Seyfarth or something like that. But that's the case. And so we're going up against this large nationwide law firm, and they don't pull any punches. They're really going for the jugular, and we're really having to fight this, which is ridiculous because, like you pointed out previously, we have all these documentations that then Mayor Durkin was in communication with Jeff Dushin of King County Public Health, and yeah, they had emails going back and forth, clearly saying that they knew that the vaccine wasn't doing what they were proposing or portraying that it was supposed to do for all their employees, and they still went ahead with this mandate. And if I can kind of tie this back in with Jessica's situation, believe it or not, so the main City of Seattle departments, their mandate went into effect October 18th, 2021. That is not the case for SPL, for Seattle Public Libraries, believe it or not. So even though it's still a city department, the Seattle Public Libraries didn't institute their mandate until, I believe it was December 3rd of 2021. So again, they're just arbitrary dates, and they don't really mean anything in the greater scheme of things, because they already had this knowledge, this information that the vaccines weren't going to do what they wanted them to do. And then on top of that, of course, come January 2022, which was right on the heels after Seattle Public Library instituted their mandate, OSHA was ordered by the courts to withdraw their emergency temporary standard for the vaccine in the workplace.
Right.
So why didn't the city start backing off of this stuff right then?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, but they didn't. And then, of course, citywide in April of 2022, they dropped their masking and social distancing policies for city employees, but they still had people that were on the path to termination, and those people were still terminated.
Yeah.
Instead of bringing them back in as the situation allowed for. But yeah, they kept on the path, and these attorneys that we're going up against, they're still of that same thinking as well.
Yeah. Well, Jessica and Darren, please keep me informed and up to date on all these cases. We have a lot of people in the fire department. We have a lot of people in the police department. We have a lot of people in medical services. Now we have people in librarian staff who are keeping us informed of all this stuff that's going on. And it would be such a simple fix for the city to do this. But if you guys could keep us in touch so we can keep our audience informed and maybe help bring some pressure on them. And I think it's about time I invite the Seattle attorney back on the show to talk about this.
Man, that would be great. And I will. I'll definitely keep you posted.
All right, Jessica Boyd and Darren Johansson, thank you so much for joining us today. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Ari.
Always a pleasure. Only good news to wrap up the show. Your good news giveaway, your good news headlines, your chance to win a $50 gift card, plus so much more. You're listening to the Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI. It is time to feel good as we wrap up another amazing episode of the Ari Hoffman Show right here on Talk Radio 570 KVI. And now is your chance to win fantabulous prizes. So today we are giving away a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card. Daniel's Broiler has been a Seattle favorite since 1980. Features USDA prime steak and other specialties, including chicken and fresh seafood, as well as a selection of high-end spirits, wine, and cocktails. Daniel's Broiler is open now in Bellevue, downtown Seattle, Leschi and South Lake Union with dine-in, takeout, and delivery. Check out danielsbroiler.com to reserve a table, place your takeout, delivery order, and more. We're also giving away a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, and a bonus of the Little Red Book of Retirement. Learn how to design your retirement to support your quality of life for 30-plus years from Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, a local company working to help you grow deep financial roots so that future financial storms don't blow your life savings away. Visit madronafinancial.com for more information and discover how you can create a rooted wealth plan today. Last but certainly not least, we are giving away 4 tickets to the Bremerton Air Show at Bremerton Airport on July 13th. Join KVI at the Bremerton Air Show on Sunday, July 13, 2025. Running both July 12th and 13th, the Bremerton Air Show is back for another year of modern military aircraft, classic planes, and world-class performers. I'm also very excited because this is the first time I get to go to the Bremerton Air Show, and I will be out there, God willing, on Sunday, July 13th as well with KVI. This year's theme is Mustang Mania, featuring the largest gathering of P-51 Mustangs in the Pacific Northwest with 10-plus Mustangs expected. Get tickets and learn more at bremertonairshow.com. That's bremertonairshow.com. All you have to do in order to win these fantabulous prizes is be caller number 10 at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Caller number 10 will win a $50 Daniel's Broiler gift card, a copy of 7 Steps to a Successful Retirement, and a bonus of the Little Red Book of Retirement by Brian Evans of Madrona Financial and CPAs, and 4 tickets to the Bremerton Air Show on July 13th. Phone lines are open now. Give Mike a call for your chance to win at 206-421-5757. That's 206-421-5757. Well, my friends, that's going to about wrap it up for us today, but fear not, we will be back tomorrow with more insane stories, more exciting guests, and, of course, more giveaways. You've been listening to The Ari Hoffman Show on Talk Radio 570 KVI.